This episode is brought to you by Honda. When you test drive the all-electric Prologue SUV, there's a lot that could impress you about it. There's the generous passenger space, the clean, thoughtful design, and the intuitive technology. But out of everything, what you'll really love most is that it's a Honda. Visit honda.com/EV to see offers.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for this day.
War Eagle, and welcome to Ever to Podcast, our somewhat regular get-together here in audio format on E2C Network, where we share the Auburn experience. That experience to us is all about a few things: Auburn sports, Auburn culture, and Auburn family stuff. An easier way to say it might be, though, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. So thank you so much for joining us in what we're going to be doing today on Ever to Podcast, episode 21. Today's date is June 11th, 2025. I'm your host, as always, Kyle Loomis, to give you the latest news, scuttlebutt, discussions, and things that are just on my mind in the Auburn, orange, and blue space. So let's get into it today. Now, these are some news stories that are a little bit old, either by a day or a few days, but there was a lot that happened over this weekend that I thought was obviously directly related to the Auburn or big implications for the future. NIL stuff. We're going to talk about an upcoming update for the first football game, and a little cool heartfelt story about one of our most recent Auburn football players who went through a tragedy as well, and coming out on the other side of things. So let's open it up with this. Your very first football game for the 2025 season is going to be Auburn versus the Baylor Bears. We have discussed here, other places, about the change from a Saturday game to a Friday game and what was going to be presumably a nighttime game. That has now been confirmed. It will be a nighttime game, on a Friday. You can't really do that I guess you could on an afternoon, but you're kind of defeating the purposes of getting more eyes on it if you're not going to do it as a primetime Friday night game. That's going to be cool in of itself. Auburn heading out to Baylor for what I believe will be the very first time as guests, and they'll return to us next year. Hopefully that will be a night game as well, and maybe on a Saturday, I don't know. But for right now, what we're updating you on is some big things, more so for on the Baylor side of things, but it's a cool thing to know for Auburn fans. They have announced that I think it's 7 p.m. Central Time kickoff, or I forget the time actually, but it is officially going to be their blackout game, meaning, no, that you can't watch it. It's not that you can't watch it on TV, but they're going to be wearing all black. So I assume that this means that they'll be wearing their all black uniforms, including helmets, and look very contrasting to their bright yellow and green color schemes, very Oregon-esque, that they traditionally wear out there in Waco, Texas. So why is this such a big deal in the Auburn space? Well, it doesn't mean anything really for Auburn. They're going to go out there and play football regardless. But it does mean that this is going to be a very visually stunning game and getting more eyes on what could be already the primetime game effectively, since moving it from the Saturday of opening of college football weekend for 2025 to that Friday night, and getting things rolling there for Auburn and Baylor. Think about it this way. So let me back up a little bit. I know when I say blackout, that immediately makes some of you Auburn people cringe, because you'll think back to the first time Georgia blacked us out at their home game, and that didn't go so well for Auburn. Certainly it seemed to help them. Let me say this for the room. Color schemes do not make a hill of beans on any stretch of the imagination. They don't win or lose games. They mean nothing. Some of you still need to realize that about the whole Under Armour and Nike thing. It's just an apparel brand. That's all it is. There are business things that go into it that are probably beneficial, but that's about it. So on this side of things, though, it's cool, though, right? It doesn't give them an advantage, but it does bring up some bad memories. So if you want to play that angle as an Auburn fan, you can. But think about this. Auburn is known for the really bold, good look of their white uniforms. They're all white away uniforms, the stormtrooper look, as we call it. You're now going to have that contrasted with the all black get up of the Baylor Bears and they're having their blackout game. This is going to look so good in person, so visually stunning on the TV. I'm excited about it. I've been excited about 2025 season since 2024 ended, but this has got me even more excited about that because I love our Stormtrooper look. And if we throw those white face masks in there that we added, the only change to the uniform that I'm okay with and forever, that will be a really cool thing. So it's just a small note on the football schedule, but it's a cool one. So be looking for that. It's another reason to get excited for the start of the 2025 Auburn football season. Let's take a wide scope here, and something that I'm still trying to kind of wrap my head around, and honestly, I think most of you are as well, with Auburn, but bigger implications of college sports and NIL. You'll know over this past weekend that there was a big settlement decision made in the case that's been out there about NIL and paying players, amateurism, all these words are thrown out there. Like I said, I'm trying to throw this all together. But apparently, it has now been decided, and I guess maybe it was Friday more than anything, that essentially schools can now directly pay their players and not necessarily through a intermediaries such as these NIL collectives. I think we all knew where this was heading when we started this opening of Pandora's box for paying student athletes. Let's not get started on the fact that you're already being paid in some sense of the word. I understand that there's a bigger nuance to this discussion, but that's happening now. So the big takeaway that I understand right now, and maybe some of you can even fill in too if I'm getting this wrong, but starting July 1st, because of this decision that was made over this weekend, Auburn, other schools can now be allowed but not required to pay, or to spend, I should say, $20.5 million in new payments to student athletes, meaning they now have a budget to work from that is universal, that everybody is allowed to go up to, and that everybody can work around. Doesn't mean that you have to. I'm sure that there are some programs out there that can't reach that amount, but I'm sure Auburn can, given their level of support they generally receive. So what does this mean for Auburn specifically? Maybe not something so much specifically for them. Maybe there are some nuances of this we can get into at a different date. But what it does mean is that for the college athletic landscape is now there is at least some framework to work from for making this more fair, universal. What does this mean in terms of rules being abided to and broken, as rules were broken previously with non-ability to pay players? I promise you this will be broken as well. They will find ways to skirt the lines and pay players more than they are technically allowed to. But that was the big news this weekend, and I think a lot of us were sitting around maybe Plainsman Park, if you were in Auburn, or just at home watching Auburn baseball, and you saw that come across. And it's maybe a big statement that not a lot of people understand fully. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But I think as part of that settlement as well, there's that continuing of having to back pay some players to a certain point. The point of maybe this is the big implication for you, the Auburn fan. Things are already expensive. They are about to get more expensive. I can promise you that. Alan Green, sorry, that's way back. AD John Cohen put out a statement and a letter to the Auburn family talking about the ruling and expressing the need to continue supporting Auburn athletics as ticket purchasers, as On to Victory supporters, and much more of that. So I look at it this way. If you are already worried about prices of things, don't be shocked if they continue to go up. They get a little bit more expensive. If there's more premium offerings to things at Auburn, keep that in mind. A lot of us were very upset when they made the locker room tours on Friday afternoons before a football game paid, now no longer free. This is part of the effects of this. This is what we all kind of asked for when we said players need to be paid. So I don't want to build a lot of animosity around this, but I'm just opening up the discussion here, acknowledging this is a big thing, a big impact, not just for Auburn, but for all the college athletics. We'll probably try to tackle this a little bit more on the Auburn Experience podcast when we can spend some more time discussing it with Austin and myself another date, but just something to note. And let's end with a feel-good story. We're doing a lot of things that feel very football-focused, even though NIL was all focused. We all think of football in that sense. News yesterday that Brain Battie Auburn running back for the 2023 season. And unfortunately, he was involved in a gun violence incident that took the life of his brother and nearly took his. He survived and rehabbed and is back in many ways that we never thought he would be. A lot of us questioned and wondered, would we see Brain Battie again? And thankfully, we got to see that great reunion that he and his teammates had before the Iron Bowl. And since then, he's even put out some other things. So a lot of efforts from the doctors, prayers for him certainly have made an impact. And I know the family feels that. But the great news for him is that he was given the 2025 Wilma Rudolph Award, which is a way to acknowledge those essentially that have overcome some type of adversity, whether it be academic, financial, emotional hardship, all those type of things. So I just wanted to today talk about how proud I am of Brain Battie and what he has overcome. Certainly the circumstances about why it happened are there as well, and we always need to acknowledge the full part of that story. But the fact that we are still here with Brain Battie and he is overcoming, moving on, hard pressing. You want to talk about someone that's inspiring, putting in the work, hard work, having a spirit that is unafraid. I can throw all the different analogies into the Auburn Creed in this, but these are the type of stories that make sports great. Yes, it is tragic, the story around why we are talking about this, but we should be celebrating, acknowledging, and continuing to pray for Brain Battie, his family, because even though we are so thankful that he is here today with us, there is still loss that they're experiencing, the loss of his brother, and just anything else that came around involving that with his family and his friends. But we celebrate Brian, and so thankful that we have him as part of the Auburn family. Congratulations to him on winning that award. Couple things for you to wrap up here on Ever to Podcast. You will not have any shows, that, as far as I know, for the rest of the week. That means Thursday and Friday. I'm going on vacation, but you never know. I might pop in if I find the time to, but I wouldn't expect anything right now. But we'll be back next week with some more of these, as well as this Sunday with the Auburn Experience Podcast, episode 129, 128. It's already out there. Go check that out. Be sure to follow, subscribe everywhere that you can, and drop us a line, either DM on social media or e2cnetwork@gmail.com if you want something talked about here on Ever to Podcast, or just let us know about anything. But you can hit us up in any of those places. Thanks for hanging out with us today here at Ever to Podcast, episode 21. Till we talk to you again. War Eagle.